Hey, welcome to EPN. My name is Victor Lucas, and we bring you the latest in everything cool every single day. Welcome to EP Live. Yes, we are live. This is not Memorex. We are streaming to the world, and we thank everybody that's come and joined us for this live show. And we're about to get started with a rundown that I'm dedicating to L Darkness, I believe, asking, what do I need to do for a shout out? There's your shout out. There's your rundown. Let's get started with today's rundown. All right, don't expect to see a new version of the Nintendo Switch for a while. With the console about to celebrate its first birthday, Nintendo isn't planning to create a new Pro or XL version of the system for at least another few years. That's according to a new report in the Wall Street Journal. Citing unnamed sources at Nintendo, the journal claims that Nintendo is concentrating their efforts on making new peripherals for the existing version of the Switch rather than make a new version. There's no word yet on what these new peripherals might be, but given all the plastic add-ons that Nintendo has created for the original Wii, they'll probably come up with more than a few ideas. They've already created different kinds of peripherals with their new cardboard construction game called Labo, where players create their own add-ons, but that doesn't mean Nintendo can't sell more expensive plastic add-ons down the road. Now, we'll be chatting about all these stories at the end of the rundown. Let's continue. Gamers won't have to wait much longer to become human in a futuristic version of Detroit. Sony and developer Quantic Dream have announced that their long-awaited PS4 exclusive, Detroit Become Human, will finally arrive worldwide on May 25th. The game was officially announced back in 2015, and a tech demo for the project was shown off well before that in 2012. The game takes place in the not-too-distant future when human-like androids are basically used as slave labor, with players taking the role of 3 different androids amidst an android uprising. It uses the same gameplay style of previous Quantic Dream titles like Heavy Rain and Beyond Two Souls, basically combining point-and-click adventure mechanics with third-person action and interactive cutscenes, along with super detailed environments and realistic character animations. Now, in related news, we're going to be seeing a lot more exclusive games coming to the PS4 and future Sony platforms. Sony Interactive Entertainment, the game publishing branch of Sony responsible for the PS4, has announced that they're restructuring their corporate operations to focus on creating more first-party games. They're reorganizing the structure of their regional subsidiaries like Sony Interactive Entertainment America and Sony Interactive Entertainment Europe, with the goal of getting more first-party titles in development, which means that we'll be seeing more exclusive games like Detroit Become Human and Horizon Zero Dawn going forward. That sounds great to me. In their press release announcing the restructuring, Sony says that first-party games are crucial to driving sales of the PS4, which seems obvious, but if this means more great games, count us in. No specific new titles have been announced. That's what E3 is for. The sequel to Wonder Woman is racing into production, and it may have found a very catty villain. Kristen Wiig is reportedly in talks to play the lead villain in the upcoming sequel to the blockbuster superhero movie. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Wiig will play the DC villain Cheetah, who in the comics is an anthropologist who gains the speed and agility of a cheetah, making her the perfect adversary for the superpowered Wonder Woman. No official announcements have been made, so consider this a rumor until further notice. Wonder Woman 2 will hit theaters in 2019 with Patty Jenkins back in the director's chair and Gal Gadot back in the lead role. Thor might be dropping his hammer and hanging up his cape in order to take on aliens in a new franchise. Chris Hemsworth is in talks to star in a new Men in Black spin-off film. Variety reports that the new film will see the Thor star play a new agent in the galaxy-defending Men in Black organization, where he'll presumably keep the world safe from alien bad guys, crack a few jokes while he's at it. The new movie likely won't see Will Smith or Tommy Lee Jones reprise their roles from the original movies, so luckily Hemsworth has plenty of star power to fill their shoes. Sony Pictures has been keen to reboot the lucrative Men in Black franchise for several years, so we'll let you know if this one moves forward. I bet they're keen to reboot that franchise. Let's talk about the Nintendo add-ons first here. Now, I feel like we got inundated with the Wii shovelware because it was such a successful console, and we got so much plastic crap out there. So it was incredibly frustrating to sort of deal with all of this junk as the Wii was sort of winding down. And I'm worried that you know, that Nintendo may go down that road because now the Switch is obviously so super successful, more successful out of the gate than the Wii was, actually. And so people are going to be going crazy to try to get in on that fervor. And I just don't want there to be a huge collection, this huge, you know, dust collecting pile of plastic stuff out there. And that's what makes Labo so exciting. Not only is it a cool technology that seems affordable to craft and build and replicate, if you rip one, which is weird. But you can also recycle it when you're done with it, you know, and I think that's a pretty cool one. Now, Paul Adamson has got a question. What do I think behind the surprise date change for Infinity War? Actually, I haven't heard about the date change. Have you heard about the date change, Blake? Now, there's a date change for Infinity War. I haven't heard anything about that yet.
Oh, it must have just broken.
It must have just broke. Okay.
Yeah,
Blake's going to research that, and I'm going to have an answer live very soon here. I think Nintendo has learned some big lessons, obviously, along the way with successful lessons and also the backlash that comes with that success. You know, there was a lot of junk associated with what came out of the Wii, and I don't think anybody wants that. It's been moved it's been moved a week forward. Infinity War. It's coming out. It's not on May 4th anymore. Wow, crazy.
It's coming out a week sooner.
Holy crap! They're done. They want to get this thing going. They want to start making the bucks. I guess they want the tailwind off of Black Panther, and they just want to get to it. It makes sense for me. There's another rumor out there. I don't know if you guys have seen this. We didn't put it in the news because it's obviously total conjecture. But if the Time Warner deal doesn't go through, this is off topic here. Time Warner deal acquisition with AT&T doesn't go through. Time Warner may sell off its Warner Brothers and DC Comics divisions, and presumably there will be some interested parties out there. One of them rumored to be interested in Warner Brothers is Apple. But what if Disney said, we want to buy DC as well, which would be insane. And of course, we've all been dreaming and hoping of something like that for a long time. We've got the Quantic Dream game, Detroit Become Human, finally being released in May. They had a little bit of controversy at the studio with some former employees talking about working conditions there and some of the stuff that was going on. I don't know what's true there. I don't know what went down. I've been to the studio. I was there, gosh, a long time ago, more than 10 years ago, maybe 15, at least between 10 and 15 years ago. I went to Paris and went to Quantic Dream and visited the team and interviewed people there. And it's definitely a pressure cooker to build content like this, which is so graphically rich and so filled with I mean, they're trying to replicate what we see in movies and TV shows and also make it interactive, and that's not easy. And I can imagine that the stress at the studio gets pretty damn high. But I'm looking forward to this. From the hands-on that I've had so far, it feels like the slickest experience that the team has crafted so far. And I like this idea. I think it's a very pertinent idea to be thinking about the rights of androids. Because we are moving into this creation of artificial intelligence that's going to be incredibly interesting in our society very soon. So I think it's going to be cool. Have I got a question here from Ryan Landis. Have you heard any rumors about the PS4 Pro getting a refresh before this gen is over? I haven't heard anything conclusively about that stuff. I would not put that out of the question. I wouldn't say that's out of the question for Sony because they've made several revisions to the existing sort of current model PlayStation 4 since they launched that. And I think it's really, these refreshes just sort of put it back in the news and put the brand back out there. It's not a huge deal for them to create cosmetic changes. Now, if they did something like, say, our new PS4 Pro will now play HD 4K Blu-rays, that's going to piss off some of the existing PlayStation 4 Pro owners out there. It's going to be very interesting how they sell us the next Xbox and the next PlayStation, the 5, because these 4K systems are pretty damn hot already, and we are really just getting started with a lot of these 4K games. So we'll see. We'll see what happens here. Question, Vic, can you divorce the reports out of Quantic Dream when reviewing Detroit? Yeah, great question, Blair. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to let the work speak for itself, and I'm just going to, sit down and enjoy the game. And I know that, a large part of a game like that is also the writers and the actors and all the other people, although I'm sure it was all written by David Cage. But I feel like there was a lot of contribution to get this game out there. And I feel like you just have to appreciate the art, and it's hard not to have it sort of bubble up in the conversation, but you just have to kind of enjoy what's sitting in front of you, It's a little different when you're talking about something like a Woody Allen movie that he is the star of. But in this case, I think that I will be able to just sit down and play the game, and I hope it's awesome. I can't wait, And I genuinely hope that that people are being treated all right, and that if there were big mistakes made, or if people were treated unfairly, that reparations have been started, at least, and that changes are coming. I mean, I think there's been a lot of abuse in a lot of different sectors of entertainment and the world, and lots of different businesses, and I think the best that can come out of it is change, so that we can have a lot more equality and respect in the workplace, but also hopefully, if there has been a lot of this stuff anywhere, there's been a movement to kind of solve things and fix things. Yeah, it definitely gets, you get conflicted when you start talking about all of this stuff, right? Because there's a lot of hopes and dreams, and a lot of shattered hopes and dreams in all of this equation out there. Let's see, any other questions or comments? The PS4 Pro, I think we're good there. I think Audrey on Leon wants to know how your trip went for Far Cry 5, Blake.
Sorry, my mic was off. My Far Cry 5 trip went really well. I'm actually not allowed to talk about it because it's embargoed until tomorrow.
Oh, okay. That's all.
But we'll have a story on it tomorrow, so look forward to that.
Blake's got a thumbs up for all of that. Okay, cool. We've got more first-party titles coming from PlayStation, which is awesome. Let's talk about Kristen Wiig as a villain in a Wonder Woman movie. That is some gutsy casting right there. That is it's like Michael Keaton level type casting as our Batman. It's she's an incredible performer, and she has skills at every level. I've seen her do some really fine dramatic work, and of course, she's a fantastic comedian. It's hard to kind of see her in a superhero movie, but sometimes this sort of, crazy mishmash cross-casting that happens with these movies turns out to be the best thing ever, And I think she'll bring a ton of personality and a ton of challenge back to Gal Gadot. I'm psyched. I mean, I cannot wait to see what Patty Jenkins and the team there is putting together for us with this sequel. Certainly, they're going to be coming into it with a lot of fire and a lot of confidence, and I think a big desire to say that this sophomore effort won't be a letdown. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, that's a crazy rumor, man. And hopefully we'll have official news from Warner Brothers very soon about that one. Now, Chris Hemsworth in a new Men in Black movie. I think that'd be cool. I love Chris Hemsworth. I think he's proven himself to be a very versatile performer. He's obviously, an incredible superhero, but he's got a lot of comedic chops, and he's a charming person, and he seems to be enjoying this whole process. And the work that I keep seeing him in, I saw him in that race movie that Ron Howard directed, and he was really good. Like, he was kind of playing a massive movie star. He was a really big, beloved hero in the racing world in that film, and he just handled it with such grace. It was really cool to see. So yeah, I could see him taking the reins on a Men in Black sort of new direction and doing very well with that. I've always liked the Men in Black franchise. I think it's been squandered a little bit, and obviously Sony has said let's try to make some money with some of the, I think with Men in Black 3 especially. So I think it'd be good to try to juice it, do it for the right reasons, learn from the mistakes of the recent Ghostbusters reboot that, we can poke holes in a bunch of different ways, but the truth of that movie is that it wasn't funny enough. It wasn't enough Ghostbusters, and I think Men in Black has to kind of revitalize the whole damn thing. So it's a great universe and a great world, and ripe for jumping back into. And Hemsworth is a good choice as far as I'm concerned. Let's see if we've got any other questions or comments. Question from Joel Roberts: do you think PS5 will follow Switch Portable role model? That has been a big question for me, Joel. I think the Switch is really proving out that people don't necessarily want to separate themselves from their software when they're mobile. You know, when they get onto a plane or whatever. You know, and I think Apple has capitalized on that by having games that you'll be able to move from your iPad to your iPhone or Apple TV. Not as much on the Apple TV as I once predicted, but I think consoles going forward have an opportunity to kind of learn from Nintendo like they always have and say, yeah, well, we want to bring it with us. So I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be surprised. I think everybody would call Sony out on saying, well, you're a copycat. But I think it's a consumer demand type thing, you know? Like, people want to be able to have these experiences that they can port with them. And I mean, when you can play a game as robust as Zelda and just carry it everywhere and continue playing, that kind of proves out the whole idea. And frankly, I think Horizon, as successful as it is, would have been even more successful if you could take your PlayStation 4 and carry it with you. Because the one thing that nobody really talks about with the Switch is that when you pull it out and when you're playing with the Switch in a train station or on the bus or wherever, or in a movie theater, you're basically an ad for the Switch. You know, everybody around you wants that machine because they're just checking their Twitter or their Instagram or whatever, and they see somebody lost in this massive world on the Switch, and well, I want that too. And so that is a very effective way to kind of gain more interest in your device. And Nintendo knew that, and I think they're capitalizing on it. And I think every one of you out there that plays Switch games has probably, out in the wild, has probably experienced firsthand the envy that other non-Switch owners have. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's not that big of a risk. The only risk that Sony would take by making their next machine or Xbox portable and home system is looking like they're chasing Nintendo's tail. But if people are that hasn't hurt all of the tablet manufacturers out there that said Apple's onto something, or the phone manufacturers out there that have sort of followed the smartphone kind of route. If people want it, I think why not build it for them? I want it. I want a PlayStation that I can carry everywhere with me. And the Vita was great, but it wasn't the Switch. You know what I'm saying? Adrian Leon, very disappointed with the Ghostbusters from 2016. Paul Adamson saying that he is into Wig and loved her and everything that he's seen so far. Ryan Gauvier also backs that up. And we got it. The Good Looker says, turn it up, and he's put it into all caps. Did you boost our audio up a little bit? Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, you guys. Oh, we got a good comment here from Blair Farrell. I'm not that envious. I don't commute. I don't share a TV. I can't afford to travel. And when I'm out with people, I like to be present. A few Nintendo titles aren't enough for the price point. I mean, that's a good counterpoint. Absolutely. It's going to be interesting to see, though. I think the Switch is changing a lot of stuff, and it will be interesting to see how the rest of the industry responds. Just like they responded with the Wii, they did respond, and to not as much success as the Wii, as we saw. Anyways, let's move on. We've got a great show today. We're going to have folks from Polyarc on to talk about their new VR title, which launched this week, called Moss. But before that, let's look at this day in everything cool. Welcome to This Day and Everything Cool for March 1st. On this day in 1966, humanity reached an alien world for the first time. The Soviet space probe Venera 3 crashed onto the surface of Venus, making it the first human craft to ever come into contact with another planet. It wasn't supposed to crash, obviously. The designers had planned for it to touch down gently and take scientific readings, but a failure in the rockets made it crash unexpectedly, and no data was sent back. Thankfully, a follow-up probe, the Venera 5, was able to land safely on the surface a few years later. It sent back readings for 53 minutes before melting in the 320 degrees Celsius Venusian heat. On March 1st, 1998, James Cameron was king of the world. The movie Titanic became the first film to make $1 billion at the worldwide box office, following a phenomenal run that began 3 months earlier. Titanic didn't slow down there. It ended up making $2.1 billion once its theatrical run ended, and if you adjust for inflation, that's more than $3 billion in today's dollars. Titanic remained the highest-grossing film of all time for more than 10 years until it was beaten by James Cameron's next movie, Avatar. March 1st, 2001 saw the birth of a new video game franchise. The original Zone of the Enders was released in Japan, with a North American release following a few weeks later. Created by the same team behind the Metal Gear Solid games, Zone of the Enders took place in the distant future, with players taking the role of high-tech Gundam robots blasting each other in third-person combat. The series wasn't as well received as Metal Gear Solid, although it did generate a cult following, enough to get a sequel made. Since then, Konami has largely let the franchise go dormant. Welcome back. We have got a couple of fantastic guests right now in the studio with me via technology that the internet provides. Isn't the internet wonderful? We've got two gentlemen that worked on the game Moss, which is a PlayStation VR exclusive. It came out on Tuesday. There was a lot of hype about this game at E3 last year, and then things started to go quiet, and I think they went quiet because these guys were putting the finishing touches on this beautiful, beautiful PlayStation VR game. Tam is here. He is the studio director at Polyarc in Seattle, and Chris is the game director on Moss. Thank you for joining me, gentlemen. And I'm looking at a television monitor here, so I'm not quite looking at the camera that's on my computer, but I see you guys, and the rest of the viewing audience sees you guys. But we're very excited that you're here. How do you guys feel? You shipped your game this week.
Yeah, it's a pretty surreal experience. We're all very excited, but yeah, I think we're all ready to take a little bit of a break and kind of just sit back and enjoy watching people play the game on all the live streams. And it's been a really fun experience.
Yeah, very relieved, and it's very interesting to watch people play and see the game through their lens. You work on a game for a year and a half, and you think you know what it's about and how it works and how it should make you feel, but it's always kind of a fantasy until first contact. And so now we're getting to see what people are really responding to. And the thing that's always relieving is that you always worry about all of these little details, and then that is not the thing that the players are experiencing.
Yeah.
You have to work out brand new things.
Tam, how big is Polyarc? How many people work at the studio?
So Polyarc is 15 people.
Okay.
And that is the entirety of the full-time team that worked on Moss. We have a single project studio at the moment.
That is incredible. The game is so polished, and you guys must be a bunch of vets that have worked at different studios, maybe in this. Give me a little history, because this is your first title, right, from Polyarc?
Yeah, it is. And we are, the average experience level in the studio is, I think,
It's like 12 or 13 years.
Yeah, 12 years, I think. And the background is quite a few of us met at Bungie.
Yep.
And then there's some folks from ArenaNet and Epic and BioWare and other places.
Well, it certainly comes through when you get lost in the world of Moss. It's absolutely gorgeous, and my 6-year-old daughter will back that up as well, because I put the PSVR on her head, and she was just like, "Wow!" You know, because just for a little bit. If there's any concerned parents out there, just for a little bit. But she was blown away, and my wife was blown away as well. Chris, tell me a little bit about deciding on a direction here, because I know that not only are you working with new technology, but it seems to me that VR, it provides a limitless amount of direction for you to be able to go. So how do you decide what you're going to do with a game like this?
Yeah, well, I mean, the game was definitely a product of the new medium. We took some time right when we started the studio, because we knew VR was something we wanted to kind of dive into.
Mm-hmm.
We took some time to kind of explore VR and kind of, do some things that we were really excited about, but also learn some lessons. And we succeeded a lot, but also failed a lot, and kind of figured out what was really important to us within VR. One of them is being scale.
Yeah.
To be in a world that feels alive. We really wanted to deal with sort of like real world scale environments. And as art director, the first time you kind of like dip into one of these environments and meet a character that you really feel something for, that's really when all the wheels started turning. And that's really how we came up with the overall concept.
Tell me about, and I'm sorry I introduced you as game director, and you're the art director. I apologize.
Oh, yeah.
We just met, everybody. This is a live meeting. But Chris, tell me about designing Quill, who I have already I've tweeted about is my favorite new character of 2018. She's just phenomenal. But tell me about designing Quill.
Well, thank you for that. Yeah, it was, as I touched on, we found the certain things that we really gravitated toward within VR. The first time I looked a character in the eye within VR, I actually felt an emotion that I've never felt before.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the time where I decided that I thought I had to quit my job and like get into this new medium. And that was sort of the beginning of all those feelings and thoughts of like, how can we create a character that you really bond with? And taking scale into mind, we realized that something that looks and feels like a character that you would really want to nurture, maybe let's say like a pet mouse or even, a pet dog or something. We wanted those to be the emotions you feel when you look into the eyes of the character.
Nice.
And that's sort of was the beginning of many iterations of concepting. She probably went through 10 different designs until we landed on the one that we really, really liked. Initially, she started out as a grumpy old man, and then we turned her into sort of like this like adventurer type that almost looked like he or she didn't really need your help.
Yeah.
Until we finally landed on Quill's design, where you feel like she can take care of herself, but you also want to go on this adventure and sort of help her and guide her through this story.
And Tam, you play the reader in this game, and I guess that was, and so you directly manipulate different objects, and you are not only controlling Quill, but you're aiding Quill from a vantage point. How long did it take the team to kind of work those systems out? Because that's not something that we normally do in video games.
That was actually one of the very early principles behind the design. We wanted to leverage the fact that one of the things that VR offers that's unique is physical interaction. And so that's actually one of the main drivers behind Chris's discussion about scale, both from the aesthetic point of view of feeling immersed in the world and comfortable, but also from an interaction point of view. We knew we wanted the game to take place in a reachable space, and then we wanted to make sure that the game design leveraged that fact. And so right from the very beginning, we were doing things like prototyping, moving boxes around and spinning platforms, and really trying to solve the problems of how can you do that in a way that feels physical and responsive without feeling too lightweight. So we do the things where we separate your grip from the object you're manipulating so that it can feel like it's heavy even though your hand doesn't perceive any weight.
Right.
And then the layer of narrative on top that was the reader was just sort of trying to find the common ground between the game design and the way we wanted to do the storytelling and the fiction. And so that was just kind of evolved after the game mechanics.
Yeah, that was
there.
my next question, because it fits so beautifully together, this idea of you are kind of figuring out the story as you're playing it, and you're reading the story in a way, but did that come first or did it come second? But clearly you guys worked on mechanics first, sort of the old Nintendo style.
Yeah, so it started with mechanics and gray blocks, and definitely Nintendo style, not by accident.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we talked about it in the studio, the legends of Miyamoto making Mario run around as a box and deciding that was fun before doing anything else. But then we started trying to decide, well, how are we going to deliver our storytelling and what's the theme for our world? And I think we knew early on there was something appealing about the book the book was a way to really ground you in the world. It's a familiar object. We're going to show you a lot of unfamiliar objects, a lot of devices and bricks and things that you've never seen before that don't even necessarily make sense in our world, right?
Yeah.
But everybody knows what a book is. Everybody knows how it works. And so you sit down and hopefully that's the thing, that's the impetus to reach out and grab and open. That's like a universal action. And then once that was in place, then I think all the thinking just spun around justifying that and making it fit and feel like the right thing.
Let's give a shout out to the narrator in this game, who I think just does a phenomenal job. What's her name?
Morla. She did a wonderful job. It is very inspiring to watch her work.
Does she work with you guys, or was she an actor that was hired and brought in? How did that relationship come to be?
It was someone we worked with before. She does some voices on Destiny.
Cool.
From Bungie.
Mm-hmm.
And we knew her and just asked if she wanted to give it a shot. And she came in and, showed us what she could do. It was an extremely tough but challenging job for her. I mean, challenging but also rewarding because she had to play 5 different characters,
I think so.
I believe. And so, she was excited. She knocked it out of the park. And, we ultimately went with her, and we're very fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, it's things like that where you have this super pro level of narration and also these environments that you guys crafted where it looks like everything was fetishized. Every single every jar that you have to bash to get that sort of magic dust out of. You guys really, the thing that impressed me is that the details were there, but you didn't get lost in how far you could go. There was a restraint. And in that restraint is the magic, And I guess that is one of the things where you guys had to go back and forth and say, how big do we go? Was room scale play ever something you guys considered, or was it always, look, let's make this sitting down, maybe you reach in, but let's not go too big?
Yeah, we absolutely considered room scale, and we didn't want to design in a way that precluded it. But we also knew that we were entering uncharted territory.
Yeah.
With just a new medium in general, and we thought, frankly, we're taking a lot of risks with the design and the storytelling and a new IP and everything, and so we didn't feel the need to take risks with the comfort level of the player. So we wanted to make sure that they were seated.
Yeah.
And going to have a relaxing experience. I think that's why there's so much craft in the environment and everything is we want to do everything we can to make sure that the players are comfortable in the space. And so we settled on that pretty quickly and thought, you could look at playing from a seated position like a constraint, and you could think that is limiting in some fashion. And we tried to think about it a different way. We tried to think about it like a challenge. And if we could make something compelling inside that constraint, then maybe we could really surprise people, and we feel good about what we ended up with.
I think the exact opposite, because I've had a good taste of a bunch of different VR titles, and I feel like there's a lot of flash, and it's really fun, and it's a great immersion, but there's an exhaustion that happens as you keep sort of playing all of these stand up and move and wave your arm around type things, similar to what happened with the Wii. And I feel like there's a maturity and a real craftsmanship about being able to hone that in. And I felt similarly about Lucky's Tale for the Rift. I thought that was probably one of the strongest ways to launch VR as a medium, because it gave us a familiar design in an unfamiliar sort of viewpoint. And was that an influence? Was that something where you guys said, look, this is a cool direction, maybe we should look at going with something similar to this?
We definitely have a love for classic video games.
Yeah.
And so we knew we wanted to combine some of the old time favorites that we've known to and grown to love, but also taking this new medium and figuring out new and exciting ways to incorporate that. And so the thing touching on the environment that I really enjoy is the challenge of combining the environment to suit 2 different characters. Like, you are the reader and you're this large character that can look down on this tiny environment, but also see beyond the spaces that Quill can see. And so there's the environment that's suited for you as the reader, but there's also Quill's environment that everything is massive, and
Sure.
and you kind of get sucked into her world, and you kind of realize that the way she sees things is a lot different than the way you see things, and we do play on that a lot, where we kind of take you into these little dungeons and have you go on these little adventures, but right when you're done with the dungeon, we open it up again and show you how large and inviting the world can be. So
that's brilliant design. What happened with the humans? You see their remains all over the place in this. Do you guys want to reveal that, or you want to?
That might be a story for another day.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the inhabitants of the world of Moss tell legends of the giants, but we're not really sure at this point within the narrative what's going on there.
Awesome. One of the things that I absolutely found myself it's not a huge long game. And that's part of, I think, VR development right now in general is you keep it kind of reined in a little bit. But I'm pining for more, now that I've finished it. And I think you guys are hearing that in a lot of reviews right now. And I want more. I want more from Quill. You guys have built this magical world and this magical character. Is she constrained to VR? Is Moss only ever going to be VR? Are you guys considering possibly... it's getting raves right now. It's a very successful launch for you guys. Are you guys considering where else you can go with this character in this world?
Well, thank you. We absolutely do think about Moss as a world, and Quill is ideally one of the many characters in it that you'll meet over time. And so, absolutely, if people respond to what we've done so far and they want to see more, we absolutely want to make more. And we don't think a particular platform or a particular form factor is inherently the only one that would work for what we're trying to build. And so, yeah, absolutely. In success, we'd like to take Quill and Masa many more places.
Awesome. There's been a lot of speculation about the health of VR development and the adoption of these VR headsets. I think PlayStation is doing some really smart moves, launching your game, quite frankly, and making your game an exclusive. Very smart move, PlayStation. But also lowering the price and putting some cool exclusives in as attached titles and stuff. How do you guys feel, and as people that have now survived a VR development and also been observing this quite closely, how do you feel about the health and the future of VR? Should people be, if they haven't jumped in, should they be getting super excited? Is it time to go out and pick up one of these headsets?
Yeah, I think it's very exciting. I think now is a very good time, because I think that we're going to start seeing, I don't know whether you want to call it the second or third generation of VR titles that will be coming out this year, including ours. And I think we as an industry have just started to really understand what's possible. And I think that is the exciting time, both for developers, where you have this incredible opportunity to experiment, learn, and try new things, and for players, because they're going to get this refresh button kind of hit on their own expectations, which I think a lot of joy comes from not knowing exactly what's going to happen next.
Awesome. Sony is in the news right now. I just reported on it in the rundown today that they are investing heavily. They're restructuring their divisions to invest heavily in first party. It's no secret that this is an exclusive for PlayStation VR. Is it a timed exclusive, or will it only ever be available for PlayStation VR?
At the moment, we're focused on PlayStation VR, but as we discussed earlier, in the long run, we would really like to bring Quill to as many people as possible, expecting that she has the potential for many fans.
Awesome. Can you take us a little bit into your relationship with Sony, though? Obviously, you guys had to kind of look, you had to show this off when it was in its early stages. Was Sony fired up? Did they get it? Did they understand, what you guys wanted to do?
Yeah, they absolutely did. We took it to them in one of their, I think, 3 months into development of our first prototype.
Very early.
Yeah, very early, like gray box models. I think Quill had one. She could swing, she could run.
She couldn't jump.
She couldn't jump, but she
There's
could look
no
at you.
combos.
But they instantly got it. They saw the potential and they saw where we could go with it. And so yeah, we've been pretty fortunate to have met them, and they're definitely have our back.
Yeah, the whole time, and they've done such a wonderful job helping us introduce it to people. As we're an independent studio when we're small, and we don't have a loud voice when we speak, and so Sony does, and so when they speak on your behalf, that's very reassuring, and so they've been wonderful to work with.
That is awesome. I know a lot of developers watch Electric Playground, and because we talk to tons of developers, and I think the indie scene is really filled with a lot of people experimenting with VR and in some capacity right now. You guys have just shipped something that is being very well received. It's a successful product out of the gate. You know, we don't know where this brand is going to go, where this character is going to go, but you've clearly learned something about making games in VR. Would you mind sharing, one or two insights that you think would help other developers the most?
I think the big one for me is try a lot of things and ultimately fail at them and succeed. Every device that we created for the game or anything that you interact with went through 10 different iterations, and a lot of things were left on we ended up cutting a lot of cool things that we believe in. Hopefully we can explore them later on, but not everything is going to make it. That'd be my advice.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add, because I think that's absolutely right, I think reassessing the fundamentals, rediscovering what the fundamentals of game design are, all the rules at the lowest level about games being about feel and feedback and what a game loop is all still apply, but then the really exciting thing in that 10 times around the loop iterating is figuring out that the actual implementation in VR is different. So all this base knowledge that you've accumulated is still valid, but then you kind of have to rebuild your tool set for VR specifically. And that, I don't know, as a developer with a history in flat screen gaming, it was really fun and refreshing to go through that process.
One of the things about VR play, I think, is that it is inherently personal. And I would imagine that everybody that plays a game like Moss, even internally at your studio, has a different sort of connection to it or a different experience to it with it. Tam, what's your favorite thing about this game that you guys have made?
Oh, my absolute favorite thing, no question, is discovering the connection with Quill. I think that is when we started working on VR, we knew intellectually that physical interaction was it's a new input method, and if a game is a function of its input, then there's new games to be made as a result of that. But the thing we didn't expect, but was powerful when we found it, was when she looks you in the eyes and you get this sense that she's real, and you feel her heartbeat, and your sense that she's real increases. And I think there's a lot more room there, but that is something, like Chris said earlier, I think that it's only possible in the way that it is possible in VR, and that was absolutely my favorite part of the process, is finding that out.
Well, that's awesome. What about you, Chris?
I think that's right up there. I think my favorite moment, I think watching people play our demo at E3 for the first time, definitely changed the way we thought about the way we make the game. And we knew physical interaction was going to be very important with our game design, but the emotional reaction that people had with Quill was something that we really doubled down on after the fact. And it was sort of really rewarding to watch people play the game and get really emotional in front of you. And we've seen a few people cry, we've seen a lot of people laugh, and it's been a very rewarding experience.
That is superb. Do you guys have time to kind of, I know that developers, when I talk to them, they never have time to play video games. They never have time to sort of look out and see what else is coming. But I'm curious, you guys you're trailblazing in a medium that's sort of defining itself right now. Are there other VR titles that you've been playing or you're super excited to play on the periphery?
You honestly hit the nail on the head. I've been living and breathing Moss for a year, and I'm actually truly looking forward after this in the coming weeks to start sort of put my head above water and see what else is out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Same.
Yeah. You tease more at the end of Moss, And one of the things that I was, you know, acutely aware of with the launch of this game is we had no idea when it was coming. You know, like it felt like we just learned that it was coming in February, like 2 weeks ago. It felt like. Is it way too soon to bug you guys and ask you when a potential follow-up or a sequel might arrive? Because I want more, man. You got me. I want more.
I mean, if it makes you feel any better, I also want more, and I also don't know. So
I get you.
Yeah. No, it's been pretty wild to kind of, you know, get this thing out the door and watch people play it and see how it's received. But yeah, for enough people like it, and we're fortunate enough to make another one, you better believe we'll start planning that as soon as possible.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, you guys, we're going to end on that. It's a real treat to have you both here with us. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have a PlayStation VR, get out there and check this game out. It is absolutely beautiful. Great work, you guys. Thank you so much. And now we're going to move on to one of my favorite buried treasures of all time. My buried treasure today comes from the very bottom of my heart. It's Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, which was developed by the Collective for LucasArts. Came out roughly 2003. Xbox, the original one, and PlayStation 2, also on Windows and OS X. I think you can still collect this thing as a classic Steam experience or a GOG.com experience. And God, I love this game. This was a terrific Indiana Jones experience. You do a lot of jet setting in this one. You're in Prague, you're in Hong Kong, Istanbul. Of course, you go to China, and you're, you know, going inside of tombs and Nazi submarine bases. You fight a lot of bad guys. You punch and kick your way through all kinds of trouble, and you swing with your whip, and you shoot at people. But you also do a lot of Tomb Raider-esque exploring and you know, treasure hunting and tomb raiding. And it's just super cool. It's super fun. It was obviously developed by a team of people that had real admiration and respect for the source material, and they wanted to kind of craft something that felt really analogous to the films and to the vibe of Indiana Jones. And it just is a wonderful game. And frankly, LucasArts has dropped the baton. They've tried a couple other times with other indie games along the way, but this is still, I think, the high watermark. Obviously, it's a little dated for its time, and it would be amazing to get a remake or a sequel or something new from Indiana Jones. Please, Disney. But, you know, this is still, it feels like indie, man. It is super fun. That's why Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb is one of my favorite buried treasures. Incredible game, incredible game. I love that thing so much. I was just in Italy with my friend Bob Donatucci, and he was the art director on Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb, and he actually lived in Rome, which is where I was, and he speaks Italian and had lived there and was kind of our tour guide, and so much of his love for Rome ended up in Indiana Jones and the Emperor's Tomb. You guys, and the architecture, he's a former architect. Incredible guy, incredible game. But right now we're going to talk about something completely different. Here's my review of Netflix's new movie called The Ritual. So I was digging around on my social medias, looking at what some people were talking about, and I saw a couple of friends were talking about this thing called The Ritual, this new horror movie out there. So I guess I'll have to make plans to go and check that out in the theater. But no, you don't need to. This is a Netflix movie. It's available right now, and if you have a Netflix account, you can watch this. Should you watch it right now? That's what I'm about to tell you. This is a movie that, you know, first of all, I think what you got to do is you got to scratch out the hype and the BS around things like Cloverfield Paradox and Bright, you know, these big budget brands and movie stars associated with these projects. This is what I'm talking about right here. The Ritual is a stupendous horror movie, and I'm not a big horror movie fan. So for something like this to be effective for me as a good piece of filmmaking, not just as a scare fest, not just as something that literally terrifies you, and boy does this movie ever do that, but just as a grand piece of cinematic storytelling, The Ritual works, and I was taken away by it from the very first frame to the last. I also have to say this movie looks incredible. I was watching it on my, I have the Apple 4K, the Apple TV 4K on a 4K display, and it just looked amazing. HDR lighting and great glowy backgrounds and the trees and the forests of this thing, just stupendous. It's shot on location and it looks it. It's gorgeous. This is a movie about these 4 lads in the UK that decide that they want to go on this this kind of adventure together. They want to go on a camping trip into the Swedish backwoods and do this path in between Sweden and Norway. It's this famous trail that people go and take.
You really want to go hiking for fun?
Right away they regret their decision because it's freezing and they can't deal with it and it's cold, and they're like, okay, well, maybe we can take this shortcut through the woods and get back. And that's when things start to go wrong. Isn't that always the case in horror movies, right? You take the shortcut, things go wrong. So there's an important lesson right there. But yeah, once they get inside the woods, they start to encounter all kinds of terrifying things, and it is absolutely horrifying, and it's really well presented. There's an authenticity to the terror and the horror, and the gore doesn't feel superfluous. It doesn't feel like it's out to shock you. Of course, there are tropes that we've seen in lots of other horror movies out there, and this is an easy one to kind of, you know, pit up against the Blair Witch Project. I guess in a similar kind of way, this movie has just sort of come out on Netflix, and people are talking about it, and I guess there is an analogy there. You know, the viral marketing that was a part of the Blair Witch becoming popular. It's a little trickier now to kind of do a viral kind of drop of films out there, especially when you have this technology through Netflix and other streaming services that just pounce it out on people. But I guess there's some kind of, you know, correlation there. This has just come out. There was no hype. There was no real buzz. And there's a surprise to that. There's also, a great surprise that there are no really big famous names associated with this movie. Some actors you've seen in other things before, but it's like, I've seen that guy in something before. So it's great. So you don't really know who's going to die. You don't really know when the hammer's going to come down and all kinds of hell is going to break loose.
Thank you.
It's good, creepy shit, and it's so fun to just, curl up in a blanket and get out of frosty days like this and just sit back and feel bad for these hapless dudes. Just smart filmmaking, gorgeous. The sounds are incredible as well. There's just beautiful, ethereal, weird sounds in this, and I had it cranked and I had it, the room to myself, and the thing just lit up the screen and it looked amazing, and I was really, really impressed. The Ritual, I think right now, is the best Netflix exclusive film I've seen. I love the Castlevania series. There's been some great series, but in terms of sitting back to watch a Netflix exclusive movie, this blows away Bright and it blows away the Cloverfield Paradox BS. This is the movie you gotta watch. The Ritual is phenomenal. Gets a 9 out of 10 from me. More like that, please, Netflix. I freaking love that movie. It was so cool. Okay, you guys, we have a long-standing tradition. Many years we have done this on EP Live. No, we've just started this year. But we have a Let's Play and Chat segment now at the end of every episode of EP Live. This is when I do my best to answer some questions. Oh, question for Polyarch. I'm sorry I didn't throw out to the audience. Sorry, Paul. Any consideration releasing a non-VR port? That would be great. Oh, yeah, and we got a super chat from Timberwolf. You are the best. Thank you, sir. You are the best. So you guys chat at us, ask us questions, comments. Blake will do his best to follow along. And I'm going to play a new game called Gravel that I just got a code for. It is an off-road racing game, a rally racing game. I honestly don't know anything about it. It's developed by Milestone, who's been doing a lot of motorcycle racing games and working with Square Enix. They sent me a code for this, and I'm a big fan of off-road racing games. So let's put 15 minutes on the clock, and then we will start a race, and we'll see how this looks and feels. And you guys can keep chatting at us now. Let's go. Pretty good show today, though, huh? Isn't it cool to be able to just instantly connect with a developer that is a first-time developer like Polyarch dropping their big game this week, and to have it be received as well as it has been? It's super cool. All right, so we are racing in. I'm gonna move the mic over here because I'm gonna try not to get slaughtered and run off the road. I try for like a good 5 minutes of playing this, and then I get off topic when we start talking about stuff. But it's fun to be back doing some EP Live. Blake was away, I was away. We had one episode of EP Live last week, but definitely going to be doing some more. We'll have an Oscar special tomorrow because the Oscars are on Sunday. So I will give you my predictions, and I would love to hear yours. If you guys have predictions on, who's going to win Best Picture and Best Actor and Best Cinematographer, all that stuff, let me know. I'm currently 2 movies away from seeing all of the nominated films for Best Picture. So I'm doing my best to watch everything before we go live tomorrow. But it's going to be a fun episode, and I'll have my review of Moss in tomorrow's episode as well. We shot that today.
I have a question from Timberwolf.
All right, Timberwolf.
He wants to know, how far are we away from Oasis being real, like the Oasis from Ready Player One?
I don't think we're that far away. I think I think that my theory about this is that a lot of what Spielberg likes to kind of do for himself is be first with visualizing the inevitable. And I think he is a video game fanatic and a fan of digital. I'm doing so well. See, this is what happens. I start thinking, and then I'm sideways on the wall. But he is a guy that sort of, understands the zeitgeist and understands what people are kind of enjoying. And he enjoys this stuff himself as well. He's always been a gamer and always into digital technologies. Although it took him a long time, funnily enough, to believe in CGI effects. And then he did get into it with Jurassic Park and stuff like that. But it took him a long time. I remember seeing interviews with him that he wanted to do a lot more practical, a lot more in-camera stuff. But he got into it. And I think with Oasis, he's starting to recognize that AR and VR are the tips of the iceberg, and I think humanity's obsessions with video games and esports and all that stuff, it's pretty hard to kind of ignore that noise. But he, I think, understands that it will cross a tipping point, Even the idea, I start thinking and I'm smashing just the only obstruction on the track, I ran into it. Even the idea of I'm watching these some of these Oscar movies that I didn't get to in the theater on my Apple TV because they're available they're streaming now. I went off-road, and I can't remember a year when so many Oscar-nominated movies from last year are already available in digital form. You can start watching tons of them right now. And it's this idea of just being able to ingest and consume digital information so clearly and easily. We're on the threshold of us putting on glasses and living inside these worlds, I tweeted today, when is Apple or Google going to buy Ray-Ban? And my question about that was, the ubiquity of that kind of a deal, and maybe it's Paul Adamson made some good points on Facebook about that, the ubiquity of a deal like that, where maybe it's because Ray-Ban is owned by another huge corporation, but something where we have something other than our phones or our 2D screens that becomes just a physical extension of us, and we're in that digital space all the time. We're on the precipice of that. I feel like phones are kind of struggling to bring tons of hype and buzz to them now because they're so good and they've sort of plateaued at their technology level in a lot of ways. And I think the next sort of threshold we cross is wearables that don't make us look like one of the characters on Star Trek. And a purchase of a massive, sunglass company and just sort of bringing all that technology in, and it's all seamless, but we're all connected. That is Oasis, pretty much, right? So I think within the next 10 years, we're going to be so close to that, it's not going to be funny. And when Spielberg gets attached to these, there's a huge answer to this, but I've been thinking about it. When Spielberg gets attached to these movies that are going to be cultural phenomenons, I think Ready Player One will be. If it's not terrible, if it's a cheesy movie, it won't have the impact that I'm hoping it will have. But if it's a good movie and it opens our minds to this idea that this digital escape is achievable and we can do it in the right way, I think it drives it forward, just like a lot of the technologies that were sort of shown off in Minority Report have kind of come to be within 15 years of that film. It was really, Minority Report was out so long ago. It's crazy, but it was so prescient and so smart because Spielberg actually employed 50 futurists who all had an observation of what, future travel on our city streets was going to be like, and they predicted automated cars, and they predicted, retinal scanning of humans as they walked into malls to target shopping, which is exactly what Google and Facebook are all about right now. A lot of those predictions came true for us. And I think we're going to see a lot of that happen again with Ready Player One. So that's my long answer for Timberwolf's question. Any other questions?
Yeah, Paul Adamson wants to know, when you start racing again, try to see, is there like a first-person view in the game?
I'll check. I'm sure there is. I'll try to stay on the road. Or that's off-road, so I'll try to not go into the water or bash into the only obstruction that's on the road or on the track.
A couple of people are asking, because Activision is saying they're going to make more remastered games. We had it in the rundown yesterday.
Yes.
What Activision franchises do you want to see get remade? And a lot of people in the chat are saying Spy Hunter.
Oh, was Spy Hunter Activision? I know Paradigm made the game. I can't remember if it was. I think Midway had that, and I don't think Activision bought Spy Hunter. But I would love to see Spy Hunter get made again. Absolutely, that was an incredible game. The Paradigm one, the first one, that blew my mind. And then they kind of watered it down, and then they put The Rock in it. Boo. I love The Rock, but just they went way too cheesy. Okay, so I'm trying to get to first-person mode. Oh, I can rewind. There it is. First person in the car. Spy Hunter is a great choice. I don't know. I don't know where that brand went. What I would love to see is Activision, and this is kind of ludicrous because it will never happen, but people were talking about those old id games that Activision published. Those guys are never going to be able to touch those. I think those will all go over to Bethesda, and Bethesda may want to do something with Rage and some of the other old ones that they've done. But Activision has this massive legacy in all of these old classic Atari 2600 games. I would love to see something like River Raid or Enduro or, those old classic brands revitalized for modern systems.
I looked into it.
Awesome.
Warner Brothers bought the rights to Spy Hunter from Midway when they went under.
Yeah.
Not Activision.
Midway's brands, man, so squandered. They have, honestly, they sold NBA Jam and Blitz to EA, but Midway has so many great titles, Narc and Robotron and Smash TV and Defender, and they're just sitting there. And it breaks my heart because those things could be wonderfully re-engineered for modern audiences. Yeah, it's a big question about... because I am a fan of the remasters. I'm a fan especially when they're done with the level of love and polish that Shadow of the Colossus just was. Yeah, there's a lot that can be done with a lot of these old classics. So I'm driving in first person, Paul, but I'm not doing any better because I'm trying to think and drive at the same time. I can't do that. This looks pretty good. Boom! I hit that wall at full speed. I just gave up. Okay. Any other comments or questions from Das Chat?
Yeah, Ryan Landis wants to know why you haven't aged since the 90s.
Why haven't I aged since the 90s? I think it's the video games and the movies that keep me so young. I love what I do in my life, and I love my life, and I love my wife, and I love my kid, and I love Blake, and I love that you guys are here, and I don't have a lot to complain about, and I think that's part of it. I think that what keeps you young is acknowledging your good fortune, and being aware of it and appreciating it. And I think a lot of us, and trust me, it's not all idyllic every day, and I go through frustrations, and I swear, and I get angry and I run out of time and I get stressed and all of that stuff. But I think life can beat us the hell up, and if we let it. And I think it's incumbent on everyone to try to find bliss as much as they can, you know, and really kind of understand when they are happy, and that will keep you younger, you know. And honestly, I've never been a person that's been unable to appreciate what I already have, you know. When we were just starting out, it was a thrill to be just starting out, you know. And when we went on, you know, on stations in the States, and we got those stations in the States, it was like, oh my God, we got these. And then we went to making daily television, and oh my God, we got, it's, all of it has been an honor. And to then again relaunch EP as a digital only thing like we've been doing these last couple of years, and to have you guys join us, and some of you sponsor us, and, you know, chat and spend the time to be here with that, or join me on game streams and stuff like that. It's all really, really gratifying.
I have a really good one here from Liquor Run.
Yep.
He wants to know, what's your most anticipated Switch game that might go under the radar? So I guess it's kind of like a buried treasure.
Ooh. Oh, man. You know what I've been missing is Broforce. I love that game when I checked it out on the PC, and I know it's coming to the Switch. And the buzz will have been long gone, but that was, in addition to being hilarious, was also a really tight game to play. And the thing that I'm really appreciating about the Switch is obviously it blows you away when you play like a massive AAA title like Zelda or Mario. It blows you away when it does that. But it's so fun as an indie sort of showcase system. Like I just reviewed Owlboy today, and it'll be in the show pretty soon. And I love that freaking game. And there's been more than, you know, I love SteamWorld Dig, and I've just been really appreciating it as a console to get lost in lots of this great indie stuff. I've got Celeste booted up and ready to go. So it's in the hopper. I don't know what in the queue. Yeah, I think an underappreciated gem of a game is Broforce, and I don't know if I've just started to play Ruiner a little bit on the PlayStation 4. I don't know if Devolver's also bringing that to the Switch, but I feel like, it's a really cool game. But I feel like there's just all of these awesome indie titles that are really going to fly and will continue to fly very well on the Nintendo Switch. Shakedown Hawaii from our friend Brian Provinciano. I can't wait for that. I've bugged him already to come on the show. Brian, you got to come on the show. I want him in the studio live so he can show it all off, but I'm psyched to see what he's been doing with that, you know? Yeah, so I don't know if there's any AAA games that I think will fly under the radar, or big budget, huge studio games, but I think there's lots of great indie stuff to not ignore on the Switch. Oh.
I have a question from Leighton JT,
Yep.
and it might be hard to answer because it's about Snapchat, and I don't think either of us use Snapchat very much.
Yeah.
As a social media person, thoughts on the Snapchat plummet? Because they redesigned it, and then their stock crashed because everyone hated it.
Yeah, I think they built a precarious little house of cards with that. I felt like they built a clubhouse, and then they changed the clubhouse, and it felt like it was incredibly targeted for like a 5-year span. Like when I booted it up, I felt like, oh my God, this is above my head. I don't know what the hell's going on. And I think when you do that, it's just like any medium. It's like when games do that too. When they just try to narrow cast with what they're shipping, you're not only you're cutting out an audience. And then which is potentially massive, and then when you shift everything in a new direction, you're offending the audience that you work so hard to get. And I think that's exactly what happened. And it was one of the Kardashians, I think, or Kylie Jenner or something. I know these names, and I don't even want to, but I hear them. But one of them tweeted about their disgust or their distaste with the new changes, and then their stock plummeted. And that's how precarious it is when you're sort of on the needle's edge with what you're delivering. Sometimes you can be too entranced with your specificity, and it is very damaging. And I feel that way about the video game industry, as I've talked about many times in the past. I feel like the industry needs to do more to get more people to care. That's what they need to do.
Hang on, before we go, we got a super chat from Patrick Furtado.
Oh, Patrick, you rock, man. Thank you so much. You are the best. Thank you, Patrick. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We will be back again tomorrow with an Oscar special for you, Oscar prediction special, plus rundown, plus reviews, plus buried treasure, and a whole lot more. Well, let's play and chat with some brand new game. I am going to learn how to play Gravel, and I will do my best to either stream some more of this or get a review to you guys. But I loved having you all here with me today, and thank you everybody that's watching this as an archive. Please join us tomorrow. And under this one, under the archive of this, if you guys want to leave us some of your comments and thoughts about the Oscar nominees for the 2018 Oscars for last year's movies, please do, and we'll endeavor to read some of those tomorrow as we get into our predictions. But have a good day, and thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you again next time.